James Watt was born on the 19th of January 1736 in Greenock, Scotland, to James Watt and Agnes Muirhead. He was the eldest of the 5 surviving children of his successful parents. His father was primarily a carpenter who repaired and built ships. He was also a contractor and ship owner who later became the Greenock's chief Baillie. He taught Watt arithmetic and writing. Watt's mother was well educated because she was from a distinguished family. Watt started his education at home with his mother, who taught him how to read. He later attended the Greenock Grammar School, where he displayed great ability in mathematics, engineering, and science. Watt wasn't interested in Greek and Latin though, and his language skills were less impressive. As a child, Watt often suffered poor health, which resulted in his parents prolonging his learning at home. It was reported that Watt often suffered frequent headaches throughout his lifetime. The young boy often calmed himself by watching fishing boats returning to port and large sailing ships arriving from the Americas with tobacco. It was during this period that he became inspired to develop engines to power the ships instead of sails. After high school, Watt joined his father in his workshop's businesses, where he demonstrated great dexterity in creating engineering models. Watt's mother died when he was 18, and his father's health also began to fail. The family was placed under a heavy financial burden due to a ship sinking and some unsuccessful business ventures. As a result, Watt gave up his plans to further his education. Instead, he left Greenock for London to get trained as a mathematical and nautical instruments maker. In just 2 months, Watt displayed exceptional hand skills, better than his predecessors. Watt spent a year training, later returned to Scotland and settled in Glasgow, intending to establish his own instrument-making business. Being a young boy and didn't have a full apprenticeship, which could have helped him to establish himself as a craftsman instrument maker. Luckily for him, the astronomical instruments given to the University of Glasgow by Alexander Macfarlane arrived from Jamaica, and there was a need to hire an expert to attend to these instruments. In 1756, Watt got the employment opportunity as an instrument repairman at Glasgow University's Department of Astronomy. He helped the department to restore the instruments to their normal working conditions and was paid. Watt was subsequently offered a job opportunity by 3 professors to set up a small workshop within the university. In 1757, he launched the workshop, and 2 of the professors, the famous Adam Smith, who wrote The Wealth of Nations, and the professor of the practice of medicine, Joseph Black, who invented the concept of latent heat and discovered magnesium, became Watt's friends. Watt developed a range of items for Joseph, which included a perspective machine and an organ. Everyone soon realized that Watt was remarkably intelligent. The professors began to call on him to discuss their works. Students of physics and mathematics also realized that Watt knew more about their subjects than they did. All this while, Watt had overcome his poor language skills and taught himself Italian and German to be able to read more scientific literature. In 1759, Watt, now 23, went into partnership business with John Craig and manufactured microscopes, quadrants, and other optical instruments. He also became interested in steam engines. It was popularly believed that Watt was inspired when he saw a kettle boiling and the steam forcing the lid to rise. He was further motivated when another of his friends at the university, Professor John Robinson, discussed the possibility of a steam-driven car with him. Although Robinson later abandoned the idea, Watt nurtured it in his mind. In 1763, Watt saw a working steam engine, the Newcomen engine. The engine was used as a demonstration by Professor John Anderson in his physics classes and soon needed to be repaired. Watt repaired the engine but was amazed at the little capacity of the engine. The Newcomen engines had been in use in Britain for about 50 years, yet nobody had thought of ways to improve them. In 1764, Watt married his cousin, Margaret Miller. The couple had 5 children, but only 2 survived to adulthood, James Watt and Margaret Jr. Margaret died in childbirth in 1772, and their child was stillborn. In 1777, Watt remarried Anne MacGregor, the daughter of a Glasgow dye maker. The couple had 2 children, Gregory and Janet. Altogether, Watt had 4 children. It wasn't long before Watt decided to improve upon the Newcomen engine. He experimented with water and steam in metal vessels in his workshop to better understand the principles. And after 2 years of thinking and experimenting, Watt was able to achieve success. He discovered the major problem with the Newcomen engine and how to solve it. He said, "The idea came into my mind that as steam was gas, it would rush into a vacuum, and if I linked the engine cylinder to a vessel at low pressure, the steam would rush into it. The steam would condense there, and it wouldn't cool the engine cylinder. I then saw that I must get rid of the condensed steam from the cylinder." Watt soon redesigned the steam engine, and by the end of 1765, Watt, now 29, had developed his first small-sized steam engine. Watt patented his new engine in 1769. Since Watt was not adept at business, he sold the patent to the steam engine to John Roebuck, who soon went bankrupt. Matthew Boulton of Birmingham bought the patent from John and formed a partnership with Watt in 1775 at his Soho foundry. The partnership was a perfect combination of Watt's engineering and scientific ingenuity and Matthew's commercial and factory skills. About 11 years after Watt built his first small-sized steam engine, his steam engines were installed to pump water out of mines. This increased Watt's earnings. News about Watt's super-efficient steam engines began to spread abroad, and this led to the Industrial Revolution. Matthew envisaged the great industrial need for steam power and persuaded Watt to design the double-acting, rotating steam engine. As time went on, Watt's steam engines found their way into even more applications. Matthew and Watt then began to export their engines to different parts of the world. In 1800, Watt retired at the age of 64 as a very wealthy man. As at then, his patent had also expired, so he and Matthew passed their partnership to their sons, who continued it successfully. After retirement, Watt continued with research work. He designed and patented steam pressure indicators, the rotary engine, the double-action engine, an improved production method for chlorine, and a copying machine. The rotary engine made it possible for engines to drive wheels instead of the simpler up-and-down pumping motion found in earlier machines. Watt died in 1819 at the age of 83 at his home Heatherfield Hall, near Handsworth in Staffordshire. He was buried in the graveyard of St Mary's Church, Handsworth. Due to the church's extension, Watt's grave is now inside the church. Till his death, his mind and mental power did not decline. On the 29th of May 2009, it was announced by the Bank of England that the portrait of Matthew and Watt would appear on a new £50 note. This design would be the first Bank of England note to feature a dual portrait. On the 2nd of November 2011, the note eventually entered circulation and bore the popular inscription of both industrialists. "I sell here, sir, what all the world desires to have. power, Matthew. And I can think of nothing else but this machine. What?